Okay, hi. Uh, yeah, it's 1 a.m. and I've been, I don't know, so like in the last 2 days, I was constantly working on something or the other. Uh, Pretty much took no breaks at all. But at least this evening, I was sort of free, went for a jog, came back, all that stuff, like all the good stuff. Um, yeah, and now I'm having a roadblock. Okay, so actually I was having a roadblock until I figured out the solution for that roadblock. So I'm still on about the uh, the breakdown of a big activity into a bunch of processes which you will find useful later, and then do the processes like actively trying to improve in that sort of a thing that I was talking about earlier in the last video, right? So as you all know, I'm doing learning sciences, a course on learning sciences this semester, and yeah, it's like eye-opening because now suddenly I have like a lot more vocabulary to work with, a lot more ideas, a lot more viewpoints. Okay, um, cool. So the issue that I was facing, so I said that the way to solve anything, the way to make any oppressive task into something where you have agency is to break it apart into its constituents and then practice the constituents through the task. So the task just becomes like, I don't know, some sort of a playground thing, right? So through the task, practice those constituents. So the constituents are at the end, a task is just a means to it. So that gives it some instrumentality and as you want to the task. So it works perfectly for things like coding projects, right? So I was given this assignment. We had to build a DNS resolver on Mininet, like on one of the hosts. Just have to run this and demonstrate that it works. And I had like instrumentality for every component over there. For Mininet, I had instrumentality because I'll be working on that for a project later. For the DNS thing, I have instrumentality because it's computer networks. It's basically acquiring information and using that information, right? So that's the whole point of this course. So I have like a lot of instrumentality for that. And also like because in general I want to know these things so that I can be a better software engineer, obviously. like what's a software engineer that can't write a socket program? I guess I went a bit overboard with that. But yeah, stuff like that. So the instrumentality part, like I definitely need that, um, and that's why I'm doing it. Let me just stop over here. Just wait a second. Yeah, I don't know. There was like some creature on the third floor. I don't know how it got here. Anyway, so I was saying about instrumentality, that because these uh, individual tasks are meaningful for me, and that's why I would be doing this, right? And it was working well, perfect. Like it was completely amazing. Everything was perfect. But suddenly I saw a task which is actually not having use for me anymore. So the task is revision, basically. Let's like, okay, the first time you read through some material, it's not revision, it's just getting information, right? It's just learning the ropes. It's just the fastest way to basically like transfer everything that's in somebody else's head into your head, right? Just read through stuff. So that I would say it's a very meaningful thing. It's something which we use day to day, something which researchers use. Like we have a tendency to do this, tendency to acquire the information, right? Tendency to see beyond. That's why like brain rot content, like Instagram, YouTube, these sort of things prosper on this tendency that we want to see new information that we don't actually know, right? Yeah, so there's that, obviously. Like, so the first time going through something, it's never too bad. Like, you always have some incentive to just go through the whole PDF because you want to know more. You want to know like where does the story end, what does this lead to, like what sort of stuff is there in this course or will be asked in the exam or whatever. So it's instrument. The second time though, revision, yes. And I shouldn't even say revision, I'm straight up going to call this memorization, because what I'm doing right now isn't actually, practicing a process. It's not problem solving or anything like that. I'm straight up memorizing syntax, like syntax and random methods in networking, like layer 3 stuff, like random early drop. Where the hell am I going to use random early drop? Like for me, it's as arbitrary as anything can get. Like I'm learning about this stuff which happens in a router, whatever. So it happens in a device which I'll never work with. I'm learning about that, something which I won't have any kind of use for. So why learn through this thing, right? Yeah, like why remember the syntax and all that, and what things different components of the system do? It's it's basically memorization, like memorization with a lot of processes thrown in, that okay, this does that, that does this, etc. That's why you need to remember what this flag is for, what this thing is called, etc. Right? But at the end of the day, it is memorization. Like I've gone through it once, right? I've gone through all this content once, and I saw it. Whatever felt good, I just took out all of that for me, like you do when you see a YouTube video. Like everything that feels good, everything that feels meaningful, something that you would wonder about, that you want to stay on and like reflect on, you only take out that sort of stuff. So most of the video, it goes to hell. Like for a very small example might be, um, let's say you're watching some action movie or some action based anime or something, or just reading a manga, who knows. So you're reading a manga, and what I'm mostly interested in about is the story, right? And that's just the way that I read anything. I'm not that interested upon the details. So I'll read through it, I'll get the gist of it, I'll be like, oh, okay, this is what kind of happened, and this is the thing that it's trying to tell me. I'll be like, okay, cool, I got the story, and that's it. I'll be done at that point. I'll be like, oh, I know all the major events, I know this, the sequence, the timeline. That's it. I don't need to know more. Like the details aren't that important. But say you're like an artist or something. At that point, it makes sense to look at each panel, analyze what the person who did all this did, why did they do this, and like reflect on that. So there's, yeah, there's that thing that like when you go through anything the first time, you you'll just take, so like any time, in fact it isn't even the first time, it's like any number of times you go through something, whenever you're going through it, you'll only catch on the information which is somehow connected to everything else that's in your brain. And it's a good thing. Like this is a very good thing, because imagine if your brain didn't do that, if you were like some sort of a garbage dump for any kind of information. Not good. That's just very inefficient. I mean, even when you maintain a cache or something, it's the least recently used cache that we use, right? It's inefficient to store everything. We'll only store stuff that we'll need, right? So instrumentality. So yeah, I was saying about memorization. Like think about the act of memorization, the practice of memorization, as something to improve on. If you were to improve on it, what how would it even enable you? Like how would remembering something that you have no use for, the practice of doing this, by the way, how would that thing enable you in any way in real life? It sure enables you when you want to pass through exams. And I'm not saying like good exams. I'm not saying exams where you actually test, that actually test how much you understand and not just how much you can store in your brain. I'm saying, okay, so hear me out. This is going to sound bad for a lot of people, but exams like history, geography, things where you remember more and recollect more rather than actually use the fact. The facts aren't so linked, they're isolated, right? So in STEM, in maths, in science, etc., facts aren't isolated, they're linked. If you're learning something, it's probably because it will be used later, right? If you're learning a Pythagorean theorem, you'll know it will be used in something else, right? Cartesian coordinates or something. I don't know, any random thing. Uh, Polar Cartesian to polar, whatever. It will be used for something, right? And so there's always this possibility of doing a top-down approach for learning, that you'll start with a harder problem first, you'll break it down into its constituents, go for each smaller problem, and then recursively solve all that, right? Recursively get all this information. And this is what I do. This is how I procure information. Like, the top-down approach is the best approach because it hides away a lot of messy stuff that happens underneath. Oh, you want to know how does a machine execute a program? Just go through the simple stack code heap sort of architecture and forget about free lists and how it's actually stored in the RAM and what was it, like paging and all that stuff. Just like forget about the virtualization that happens for the OS. Forget about like the on-demand paging thing that might happen if your process is like takes a lot of memory. Forget everything, right? Like just hide away all that and just code heap stack. That's it. That's all you need to know. So it's that sort of a thing that if you're doing a top-down approach, you first don't need to procure a lot of information that would be meaningless. And second, this instrumentality. At every point, the information that you will be procuring will be for something. It will be useful. It will be something that makes sense. It won't be abstract. This won't happen in revision. Because in revision, there's literally no use for the information that you are actually going through. It's a bottom up, it's not even bottom, it's just straight up linear at that point because there's no up. It won't actually be used for anything else. You're just remembering the details better, and the details are just details. They're not instrumental to anything. So you'll just be remembering. You're just going over material which feels redundant. It feels like, why go through it, right? It makes no sense to go through this thing. And more than that, this process, this practice, it makes no sense to even practice this, to even actually get better at memorization. Like, what benefit will I even get after I get better memorization? Like, everything that I could ever wish to remember is just like one Google search away, right? Like I can tell you capital of whatever city, whatever state you want me to get to the capital of in like 3 minutes. Okay, 3 minutes is actually too much. Half a minute, right? I don't need to remember it. I don't need to, like, my brain is not a database. It's not a database. It's not like a bunch of records stored here. And I shouldn't treat my brain as a database. That's just making it do something that it's not meant to do. So then how do I even incentivize this task? That currently I want to memorize a lot of things. I want to do revision, basically. What's my incentive? Like remembering the syntax of some protocol. There's no incentive to that. It's just one Google search away. It's not useful. Like, I already know the semantics. Why go to the syntax at all, right? So what's the point? And even just figuring out random details about things which mostly go unappreciated. It's like the way they're put into slides, it's like bullet points, and it's just the very top, like, surface level knowledge of how exactly is the solution implemented, and it's not really telling all of it. It's not telling why was this done and why this particular approach and what was it actually trying to solve at that point. Like, you have this urgent pointer and push thing in TCP, and the way it's written in the slides that my professor made, it's just like one page. It's just one page. It's saying, oh, this is the urgent pointer. It's in this bit location. This is the push. This is this bit, and there's the urgent flag, the push flag, and then there's some urgent pointer thing, and that's it. Like, that's it. You don't need to know more because that's not the point. Just move on, something like that. So, like, it's giving a good overview, which is what you do on the first read, but it's not going into details. It's It's I mean, it's not going in a top down approach into the details, right? It's breadth, not depth. And if I don't get depth, there's no theory there's no linking of information like usually happens in science, that everything will build on top of something else, and to understand the bigger thing you have to go down and recursively figure out what the smaller thing means and so on. It won't happen here. Here that won't ever take place because everything is isolated. And it's not actually isolated. There is a history behind all this. There's a reason why you had the urchin pointer. It's so that things like Control C works when you are connected to some server. Right? Why you had the push, because there's something known as the Nagel solution and ACK delaying, which is used to solve this tinygram syndrome, silly window syndrome, these sort of things, which cause even more problems. And to solve those problems, you need this urgent pointer thing. So you need this push thing. So yeah, there are reasons why you are learning the things you are learning. Otherwise, you wouldn't be learning in the first place. Like, the content you're learning isn't the problem. The problem is with the way it's presented. Because it's presented as if it's isolated from the real world, as if it's isolated from even the other information that you're learning, which is stupid. It's just not a good thing to do, right? And then there's another layer to all of this, because memorization is something which has a stigma of being an oppressive task. It's what the nerds do. It's what people who seek value from their teachers pet, and these sort of people. It's what they do. People who believe in the folly that knowledge can be like just pure knowledge, not concrete knowledge, just abstract, like without any use. That sort of knowledge actually has value. It could increase the societal status or something like that. It's people like that who would use it. And I have this problem. Like, I'm somebody who suffers because there is a stigma. Because now suddenly memorization isn't just meaningless, it's oppressive. Like, the process itself, it makes no sense for me to even want to become better at this. Because I can't get better at this. I don't have an incentive, and I actually hate getting better at this. Like, I won't do the actual activity that I was trying to do, that I was trying to find an incentive for. In my case, it was just revision. So I won't revise. And that's bad. And it doesn't usually cause me a lot of problems, because somehow, I don't know if I'm gifted or something, I remember stuff. Maybe it's because I remember stuff which actually has uses, and that's coincidentally what they ask in the questions in the exam. But this time, that's not the case. I'm being asked random stuff which I don't have any use for, which doesn't integrate well with the rest of the information that they're giving us. So it's abstract. Like, it's meaningless. Let's not even call it abstract. It's meaningless. So how did I solve this? Like, how do you solve this blockage that you have? My method works well for most of the things. It works well for things which feel like they're some sort of oppression, but then if you break them apart, it's not really oppression, it's just a bunch of things which you can get better at. But for this, it literally is oppression. Like, there's no escaping it. You're doing it the way that you've been told to do, that is, go through the slides and just ratify everything. It's oppressive. Like, dude, it's just oppressive. You can't sugarcoat that. It is like textbook oppression. When I say textbook, I mean the textbooks written by Paulo Freire, of course. not the textbooks written by whoever thinks this is a good approach. So yeah. So now what do we do? Like, we can't get out of this one, can we? But we can. The thing is, the reason you're being made to go through this content is because it had some use. The use won't be visible to you at the very start, right? So when a kid is learning algebra, he doesn't have a lot of use for it. It's abstract to him. It won't be like available. The use won't be there for a lot of time until eventually, at some point, I don't know, when he starts solving big problems, the use shows up, and then it's instrumental. So this is what's happening right now. That the slides I have, it's treating me as just a passive recipient who will just collect all this information and then later use it when it will be needed. But that's the bottom up. That's just the wrong approach. That's the bottom up approach. And add this with the fact that I'm being graded based on how good I remember this abstract information. It's actually a terrifyingly bad approach because not only is it doing the things in the wrong order, it's actually promoting that even I as an agent with some agency do it in the wrong order, because then I can maximize my efficiency for getting grades, which is needed if I want to pass the course. It's needed for psychological safety, like, oh, what happens if I fail this course, right? Yeah. So what do? I mean, I can't go on searching the history of every little thing that I'm learning like I'm doing right now, or it will just take up too much of my time, right? That's what's going on in my brain right now, that it's taking up too much time, that I'm not going through the material fast enough because I'm going in depth, not going in breadth, right? So I can be doing that, right? And that's where I made a discovery. I can actually be doing that, because the point is, if you don't have any kind of instrumentality for the thing, it's not just that you'll feel oppressed while remembering this, while trying to ratify it. It's that you'll be inefficient while trying to ratify it. You'll jumble up things. You'll remember things in the wrong order, or you won't, like, you'll mix up things which sound the same but are not the same at all. Like, there was this thing called delay based congestion control and rate based congestion control in TCP, which look the same because they have delay, and delay is somehow related to rate, like, the congestion window about the round trip time, which is a delay, is just the rate. And you might say, okay, then these two are the same thing, right? In fact, they're at the same slide. Like, in the same slide, this dude who wrote my slides, I don't know who did this, he said delay and rate based TCP congestion control mechanisms. And I was like, okay, they're the same thing. And then turns out they're not. Like, I went a very little bit deeper, and then I figured out, oh, okay, rate based is entirely different from normal TCP congestion window stuff. Like, it isn't increasing or decreasing the congestion window at all. It's just like straight up trying to match the bottleneck links rate. That's all it's doing. So it's actually a bad approach. Like, this thing where you put slides which has a lot of information which is isolated, not an instrumental, and you put grades based on how well I can collect all this information and then remember it. It incentivizes me to not go deeper and to misunderstand purposefully these things, so like mnemonics and all that sort of shit that create false information or placeholder information just so that it somehow makes sense, so that I can remember it better and then just get through the exam. And after that, there will be no instrumentality, right? So I actually have no use for it. So I won't ever visit it again, and then I'll have a schema in my mind that I shouldn't have. Basically, misinformation. And bad approach. Not a good approach at all. This is just, like, bad. So the point is, just doing it breadth first, like how I'm supposed to do, is already inefficient. So doing it depth first is also inefficient, and this is also inefficient. Which inefficient would I rather go with? And I'll go with the depth first thing. Like, I'll always go with the depth first thing, and not this bottom up, like, linear, isolated bunch of shit approach, which is in my slides. I'll actually just take each concept, break it apart because of its history, because the history itself is actually somewhat interesting. So I'll do that purposefully, even if it costs me grades. And most probably it won't cost me grades because I'll be just as efficient as I was if I was going breadth first. That's my solution. That's the solution of how to not make it oppressive. Because then you go from just a passive recipient of this information to somebody who's actually procuring more information to understand things better. You'll do Google searches, you'll write down your own notes, you'll do all these things to make it make sense. And at that point, you are practically a researcher. I mean, okay, not like actually a researcher, but showing some symptoms of that, right? Like, a thousand tabs open, that sort of thing. So, yeah. And the cool thing about all this is my failure at something which I proposed is what led me to modify it a bit, right? Like add edge cases. So in a sense, I'm more of a system designer person than anyone who just reads through these courses, because I'm actually designing a system at this point. I'm designing a way to make almost any task non-oppressive, right? And if I can do this, if I can successfully implement this thing, it's not just my life which I'm changing. I'm actually giving everyone a way to get, like, I don't know, 10 times better at the academic stuff, at least. Because I feel that the efficiency a person has for reading, studying, all these things, it's not actually related to their cognitive abilities. It's not about grasping power. It's not about, it's nothing like that. It's not about how fast you can do calculations. It's about motivation. And I don't mean like an internal motivation, because motivation is never internal. It's based off something. It's based on like praise. It's based on a sense of belonging, identity, etc., etc. So if I can somehow make it non-oppressive, then I'm already improving the motivation people have for these sort of things. And for me, there's already a lot of motivation. As I told you, I have this belief, and I'm going to call it belief, not knowledge, that everything that I do will have one incentive, one primal incentive of the act of doing. So it's a imaginary practice which every practice is somehow inherently having. So whenever I'm doing something, I'm also simultaneously doing this act of doing, and so I'll get better at that practice at least. So there's always going to be some incentive. And if I truly believe that this act of doing is important enough, then I'll be just motivated. Like it's almost like a god that I've created to motivate myself. But yeah, I mean, I believe in it so much at this point, like subconsciously, because I've been using it for who knows how many years. So now that I believe in it so much, I mean, I just created a positive reinforcement mechanism, and I'm good with it. Like, I like it. Like, there are just some beliefs which I probably shouldn't shake. I probably don't need to question too much. Like, if I have this productive belief, let it be. Why care so much about falsifying or non-falsifying this? But for the people who don't have such a belief, who haven't had the same kind of events as I had in my lifetime, we all need to solve this. I mean, at this point, it's not just my problem, it's a problem. It's a big common problem. We all really need to solve this. Okay, anyway, so I'll be going back, pulling an all-nighter, preparing for the quiz. See you guys in the next video.